Hello, my name is Dennis Schall. I'm a volunteer at the Hellertown Historical Society and one of the people who's involved with the Society's Education Committee. This morning we're out on a public tour with some people from Nazareth and local areas, and they have come here to learn about the history of Hellertown, and that's what our tour entails. When you come on these tours, you're going to get about 250 years of history, beginning in 1738, when the founder of Hellertown, Johann Christopher Heller, landed in the port of Philadelphia after escaping wars and religious persecution in his homeland in Germany. Mr. Heller and his son Simon established a small sawmill here, which eventually evolved into a three-story colonial grist mill that was in operation from 1767 or thereabouts up until 1945. We call it the Heller-Wagner Grist Mill because of the owners, the early Hellers, and then the Wagner family took control of it for well over 100 years. The grist mill was a place where farmers would bring their grains during harvest season and have them ground into flour. It could be wheat, it could be corn, it could be barley or oats. This was one of several grist mills along the Saucon Creek that provided that service. This was also one of the first businesses in what became Hellertown. The town didn't grow much during the 1700s or the early 1800s, but by 1852, it was large enough to be incorporated into a borough with a few thousand people. When people come on this tour, they're not only going to hear about colonial history, they're going to go through our museum and see vignettes that picture Hellertown and the technological changes that altered life from the early 1800s right on through the mid-1950s. So there's an awful lot of history here. We're only about 100 yards from Route 412 or Main Street, which used to be called the King's Road, which was a coach road during colonial times, but started as a Lenape path called the Minsi Trail. That became enlarged into a bigger path when the 1737 walking purchase went through the area, which was basically a land swindle by the heirs of William Penn that took 1.2 million acres of land from the Lenape. But that path, the Minsi Trail, grew into the King's Road, and it became one of the main thoroughfares between Philadelphia and the Moravian community of Bethlehem. Hellertown was right along the way, and it saw a lot of history. Many of our founding fathers traveled to Bethlehem because it was more or less a tourist site. It was a peculiar town with industrial history, a missionary center, and popular to visit. As the war came, the revolution came, that road became even more important, especially after the Battle of Brandywine in 1777, when the Continental Army was defeated by the British, and Philadelphians had to evacuate to get away from British troops. So the King's Road was used. 300 wagons came up that carried the Continental Army munitions, the Continental Army Hospital, prisoners, British prisoners, civilians came along. That all traveled through Hellertown. And later on, at the end of the war, George Washington himself came through Hellertown on horseback on his way from the Philadelphia area to Albany, New York, where peace negotiations were going on to end the war. So there's a lot of history here, and this is what we talk about during our tours on Saturdays. We hope you can join us on the second or fourth Saturdays of each month through October for a 10 a.m. 1-hour tour of our site, which just became part of the National Park Service's National Registry of Historic Places. We're very honored for that. It's an honor that shows the value, the historic value of the complex that we maintain. We hope you can come out.